everyone, and welcome to the Immergence Show. I'm your host, Nico Farah. This is the show where we get past the hype and dive deep into the emerging tech and brand stories that are actually shaping our future. Today, we're tackling a critical question. What is the unseen bottleneck holding back spatial computing? My guest today argues it's not what you think. He is one of the true connectors and visionaries of the immersive web, Ben Erwin. He is the president of the Academy of Immersive Arts and Sciences, the creator of the Poly Awards, and a board member at the Metaverse Standards Forum. We're going to reveal what this bottleneck is and his bold plan to solve it with a PBS for the immersive age. As always, this is a live conversation. Get your questions ready, drop your thoughts in the chat, tag a friend who needs to hear this, and let's get started. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Nico.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. I've been waiting for this episode for some time. I know you're an amazing thought leader, like I mentioned, in this space, and you have had a fascinating career. From webmaster at the UN and data scientist at New York Times to becoming a central figure in the immersive web. I would love for you to tell us about your journey in your own words and how you got into the immersive experiences.
Well, you already mentioned my sort of highlights of working at the UN and the New York Times, but I began my own agency back in the 90s when the web was just becoming a thing. And so I set out on that frontier, and I've always sort of lived on the bleeding edge, pushing the technologies for what they could do. And when we got to 2016, I was doing really well, but at the same time, I was seeing the writing on the wall that we had sort of reached the peak of web development, 2D web development as we knew it. And everything was becoming commoditized through Wix and Squarespace and off-the-shelf WordPress themes. So the bespoke under-the-hood technology that I was building was sort of less in demand. But at the same time, I went to Web Summit in Lisbon in 2016. And within a few minutes, I experienced 4 different devices. The HTC Vive had such great content that I thought it was photorealistic until I put my head through a wall. And I said, oh, okay, I get it now. And the Oculus Rift was so comfortable and such a high quality device that I went back to my hotel and I ordered one. Little did I know I had to buy a graphics card to support it, but then I did. And what I discovered was that the content that was being made for the Rift was largely built with Unity. And coming from my web background, I was really eager to see what VR could do on the web. And I had to wait another 3 years until the WebXR spec came out and the Oculus Quest came out with the browser in it. And when I tried it in January of 2020, this was right before the pandemic, I knew that this was what I was waiting for. The experience was called Hello WebXR, and that whet my appetite for all these experiences that I kept finding. I found a couple of portal sites that linked me to what WebXR experiences were available. And all that summer during the pandemic, I was really tracking everything that was going on. And that's what led me to the polys, but there are pieces in there. So that's the beginning of the origin story.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's take a moment and say hi to our amazing already live audience. Jean, Gary, Felipe, Shadi, and Julie, and everyone else who's tuning in. Thank you so much for being here. Feel free to share your thoughts as we go through this great topic. And if you have any questions, we'll definitely get to it. Hi, Drew. We're gonna talk more about your experiences. I would love, before we get into this unseen bottleneck, I would love you to share kind of like some of these organizations you've co-founded You started, for those who may not fully know the background story, and they need to get more involved. Share a bit more for us, please.
Well, as I mentioned, 2020 was a really pivotal year, and you also mentioned that Julie's there. So Julie was a very important part of this story from the beginning. She and Terry Schuessler and I started working on XR Collaboration, which was an industry resource guide that we collaborated on in 2020 that really taught people about what VR is, all of the different technical terms, as well as what devices were on the market. It was a pretty in-depth publication that a lot of people worked on together. And that was the beginning of what grew into what evolved. And I feel sometimes like I'm telling a story from the Bible, because this begat that, but it really, that's XR Collaboration begat the Polys. And in between there, I met Sophia Mishasha, who we did Ready Player Golf together. We just had our 6th Ready Player Golf last week. And as I mentioned, I was learning all about WebXR in the summer of 2020. And by the time we got to October, I created my first WebXR site, which was what became the Polys. And I said to Julie and Sophia, hey, why don't we do this for real? Julie, would you like to host it? Sophia, would you like to be the red carpet host? And they said yes. And that plan took effect. But at the same time, and I'd like to note that today, November 18th, is XR Women's 5th birthday. And Julie, Sophia, and Karen founded XR Women 5 years ago today. And that has been going on its own track ever since. They've done 250 weekly events, which is just staggering. The amount of content. They have something like 5,000 members around the world. And now they're a 501c3 nonprofit. So like that is a whole story unto itself. You've already had Sophia and Karen on the show, so that story has been told. But congratulations to my sisters at XR Women, because it's just amazing what you guys have done. So picking up from there, the Polys happened. The first Polys happened on February 20th of 2021. That went so well that we came up with the idea for the WebXR Developer Summit, and that went so well that we came up with the idea for the WebXR Business Summit and the Design Summit, and that inspired Metatraversal. And so I spoke with Neil Trevitt and Ivo Haining and Terry Schuessler, and we said, hey, we need a Meta Davos to bring people together to talk about standards and interoperability, because still to this day, we cannot portal from one platform to another, and we believe that we should be able to. So we held this event the day after Mark Zuckerberg rebranded Meta and said, hey, everything's going to be interoperable and you'll be able to take digital goods from one place to another, which we still haven't seen yet. But nonetheless, Metatraversal was what we renamed it after we spoke to the World Economic Forum. And they were like, we love what you're doing, just don't call it Meta Davos. So we called it Metatraversal. And we had a second, third, and fourth event, at which time Neil told us, hey, I'm working on something and it's complementary. It's kind of like what we set out to do here, which was the Metaverse Standards Forum. So Metaverse Standards Forum kicked off in 2022 as we were actually mounting a second year of the WebXR Summit series. So we did education, brand, and production that year. So that series had 6 day-long episodes that produced over 66 hours of content, plus another 12 hours in town halls. Meanwhile, Metatraversal started portal crawls because we'd done a lot of talking and we felt like we really needed to get out there and be practitioners and demonstrate how much friction there really is between getting between platforms. Now, starting off with WebXR gives you a link, and it's pretty easy to go from one platform to another. And there's different levels of friction, but that's where we began with the portal crawl. So Metatraversal has now, just as of last week, had its 17th edition. And Metatraversal last year, Terry, Karen and I co-founded the Academy of Immersive Arts and Sciences in mid-2024. And Metatraversal and Ready Player Golf officially became programs of that, and the Polys became officially sponsored projects. So the Academy is the presenter of the Polys. And that sort of brings us up to date, where last week we had at the Immersive X conference, the panel building an immersive 3D ecosystem. I'm sorry, missed the title. But we talked about immersive distribution last week, and that is what we're here to talk about today. So that's the quick on the past.
I love this conversation. I was there as well. I loved how you brought in different experts from different sides of the industry. Evo was there representing creators, and a lot of other amazing thought leaders in the space. Thank you for the shout out to XR Women. I love them. They're amazing, and happy anniversary to you all. You have been putting so much good work with all these allies like Ben, like Terry, that have been supporting this great movement. Amazing. Thank you for that. And we have so many comments going on already. Chris says this is his one of his favorite topics. And yeah, a lot of people are excited about this conversation. So let's get into this unseen bottleneck. Everyone is focused on hardware a lot. They are trying to make different types of VR headsets, AR glasses, but you look at it a little bit differently. You think that the problem is more around this distribution. I would love you to unpack this for us. And why do you think that's the bottleneck, and why is it unseen?
Well, first, on the hardware and software track, this is something that is sort of its own self-fulfilling industry problem that really smart people are working to solve. And the physics of light, heat, weight, and power are extremely hard to solve, to put it in an all-day wearable form factor that you can wear on your face without irradiating your head. So everybody wants safe and practical glasses that are good for your vision, and we're a couple of years out from there. We always keep saying we're a couple of years out, but I do believe that with things like the Meta Orion glasses and the X-Real Project Aura coming out, and there are a lot of new devices that are coming. Eye tracking seems to be something that is very cost prohibitive for people. So I think they really need to bring the cost of eye tracking down, because the benefit of eye tracking is that it makes your avatars a lot more lifelike. And lifelike avatars is something that is also coming when we have more processing power. So however they solve this over the next couple of years, the same way that it was once thought impossible to be able to stream video on a moving train on a high resolution device in your pocket, I think we can have reasonable faith that we're going to get there within 3 to 7 years in terms of this hardware coming to market. And when it does, when the mass market is achieved, it's going to need content. And what is really broken is how the vendors intend to sort of control that distribution and are not looking to cooperate with each other. And so if you look to the past for analogies on this, one of the ones that I thought of was like, what if in the early days of music distribution, that vinyl records and cassettes didn't all work the same? Just imagine that. Like, imagine if you went to the store and you had to choose between like VHS and beta to listen to an audio cassette. And it's like, oh, wow, I can't listen to that because it's not available on the format that I want to listen to. Bollocks. That is just like, it's as ridiculous as it sounds. And that's kind of what we're sort of starting to get used to. So we had the VHS and beta problem with video cassettes. We had HD DVD versus Blu-ray coming into the optical disc era, and we have seen several different iterations of destructive competition in the industry where somebody wants to control the standard so badly that they're not taking into consideration the convenience of the consumer. And the convenience and the price point of the consumer is everything when it comes to being able to scale a new technology. And so, even though we haven't solved for the science of XR hardware the way that we will in the coming years yet, we have to be there to meet the moment when the content needs to be there to justify somebody buying it, because it's like, oh, great, you want me to spend $1,000 on a pair of glasses? Okay, what it's in it for me? The content is in it for me. And so the thing that we really need to keep in mind is that the type of content and the way that we produce content for 3D is an order of magnitude more sophisticated than creating stuff in 2D. So that can't be taken for granted, but we actually have a lot of the tools that we want to do. However, a lot of those tools publish into formats that are not easily distributable. And that's sort of like the core problem that we have with this.
Thank you. That's such a good point. When I think about like Apple Vision Pro, which was kind of a failure, looking back, it's because of the same problem, right? And there was not enough compelling content that will motivate people to go pay that high price. And everybody was like looking for that killer app that, brings that, reason and value for people. Do you agree with that? Do you think that was the reason that Apple Vision Pro didn't succeed as much as they expected?
Well, I would argue that Apple Vision Pro exceeded its expectations because their expectations by Apple and the expectations of the marketplace were two different things. That Apple didn't want to reach the mass market all of a sudden. So hence the $3,500 price tag. They made it so that fans, rich people, and developers would buy it so that they could build out a content ecosystem, which makes perfect business sense. It's quite shrewd and quite smart on on Apple's part. But what, when people say, oh, it's a failure, again, bollocks. That is, it is what Apple intended to do. And even now they just released an upgrade to it. And it's a faster, better device, but it's still $3,500 and it's still with the intention of building the ecosystem. But once Apple has that in place, then they will do it. But while we're talking about Apple, when it comes to standards and interoperability, Apple's always the outlier. Apple always does things their way. They have the Swift language and they do support standards, like, to their credit. They support WebXR, they support WebAssembly, they support WebGPU, but they do it their own way within their own sort of petri dish to do this. And historically, support for things like GLTF and WebGL was always uneven. And this, from a developer standpoint, has always been a bit of a hindrance because, first of all, there's the effort that it takes to be able to make an experience compatible with different versions. So take the browser wars. I'm a veteran of the browser wars. I have many scars from, life lost to making Internet Explorer 6 work. Or that Flash lived for 10 years and is a big part of my portfolio, and it's been completely expunged from the web. I've talked a lot about that. But the thing with Apple is that they want to contain this, but at the same time, they have limited support for Unity. And that is going to bring in a big part of the developer ecosystem. But I think that what is the most important thing that Apple's doing right now is they are part of the Alliance for OpenUSD. They're one of the 5 founding members, along with Autodesk, Adobe, Pixar, and NVIDIA. And the OpenUSD format is a authoring format, And it's also intended to be a deployment format like GLTF. And both are streamable. And I really believe that streaming is the future. Level of detail streaming is the future of XR delivery. That is how we're going to get our XR experiences, because downloading everything that you need is, first of all, wasteful. And second of all, it is just going to create a network overhead. And when, part of the sophistication that I was talking about with these experiences is that it's where you're facing. Like if you're inside of an experience and you only need the data for what you're facing to be loaded. And as you get closer to things, it can increase the focus of it. So this is all what is called LOD, or level of detail streaming. And for 3D formats to be able to deliver that content, this GLTF is a very mature, well thought out, and importantly, extensible specification that is already out there doing streaming. Cesium, for example, and Patrick Cozy, who is the CEO of Cesium and the chief platform officer of Bentley, who acquired Cesium last year, their 3D streaming tiles is sort of a model of what it's going to look like in terms of being able to stream other types of 3D content. And that it's really essential that the optimization of both of these formats be focused upon, including for immersive video, because immersive video is going to be a big part of this delivery when we're talking about immersive distribution. I apologize. I set up myself with lights. I didn't bring my power supply, and I'm watching my battery go down. So I don't completely disappear. If you could cover for me for like 45 seconds and just,
I'm going to read the comments and this
question, and then I'll be back with my plug.
No worries. Yeah, really great topic that we just shared. Let me go through some of the great comments we got. Karen mentioned, not only does eye tracking help make avatars look more human, it's very useful for analytics. Though, of course, that can scare people and could be used in nefarious ways. Of course, data privacy part is always a challenge. A really good comment. Thank you, Karen. And Ivo mentioned there are core breakdowns in funding for new productions outside of platforms. Few are funding new experience development and distribution discovery, challenges that other countries and ecosystems have overcome successfully. Korea, Japan, for example, have solutions that could work elsewhere. Do you have any thoughts on this, Ben? I think I haven't seen exactly how Asian countries have solved for this, but you might know a bit more about this.
Well, very often Asian countries are first to market with, take NFC, for example, like what we use to do Apple Pay, near field communication to pay for products. It's sort of like Bluetooth. They had that years before that was a thing in the Western world. So I know that Korea is one of the first countries to have its own metaverse. And I'm not quite sure where that is, because that was sort of part of the metaverse hype bubble, but I'm sure it hasn't gone away. They may not be promoting it or calling it that as much, but I think that we're trying to solve the same problems, and a lot of the tech companies that are making the hardware are based in the US, even though a lot of them are manufactured in Asia. So I can't really sort of speak to where they are ahead. I would be very, grateful for any information that somebody has to share about that.
Yeah, I think Evil probably has, she says, larger scale WebXR events are more common in Japan, related to virtual worlds events, sometimes attended in the millions. Yeah, and probably they provide more funding and support for the developers and creators. yeah, I mean, we can't have the content without this supports for the creators. I know Meta is trying to do some, but it's not enough. There needs to be more of. But yeah, you mentioned about interoperability. Definitely, that is a huge challenge that needs to be fixed. And you guys have been working on that in Metaverse standard forums, right?
Well, in Metaverse Standards Forum is sort of a table that a lot of big tech companies come together to share on the development of standards. But MSF, importantly, is not a standards organization, the same way that a W3C, IEEE, Kronos Group are. They're actually developing the specs. They're actually developing the standards. Metaverse Standards Forum is sort of a collaborative consortium that brings together key stakeholders to be able to accelerate the development of this and focus on the plethora of activities that are required to be able to deliver different aspects of this. And there are one of the words that really inspired Metatraversal, which later inspired Metaverse Standards Forum, came from Neil himself. He says, it will take a constellation of standards to achieve the open metaverse. And that visualization of, connected dots is really sort of an apropos way to look at what is necessary to be able to do that. So, but getting back to what your lead into that, where Evo said something really important at our Metatraversal talk last week about there isn't enough audience for a blockbuster. And she cited things like Fortnite and Roblox and Minecraft as things that are attracting millions. And one thing that I think is really important to state is that these may be 3D experiences, but they're 3D experiences consumed in 2D. And that's great. But I personally am pushing for an immersive first design paradigm where things are designed for and experienced in 6 degrees of freedom. And so it's great when you can take a 3D experience and put it into a 2D frame. But if you're looking at something on a desktop or a mobile surface, then you're looking at it in 2D. Whether you can navigate around in it, it is not truly immersive in the sense that you're not inside of it. And so the scalability problem with that is that very few platforms can tolerate more than a few hundred people at a time. Some can't even tolerate over 100 people at a time. And so the experience starts to degrade the more people you have in. And there are various different solutions. Like back in 2021, Active Theory came up with a really smart way of optimizing things where they had hundreds of people. They actually had I believe 50,000 VR users at once, and they had audio bubbles that kept them in there, and they had like these little avatars that showed where somebody was from. So you could see like Sri Lanka and Canada and places all over the world where somebody was from instead of their name. And that was one of the many optimizations they had to be able to pack a world. To have a high fidelity avatar with so many people in there, the more you load it up, the more it degrades the experience. And this is a key thing that immersive distribution needs to be able to solve for, is the scalability to have that level of audience. Now, you can shard them, which sharding is where you have multiple instances of the same world, and they may have some shared components to it, but you don't have everybody in one room. You have 50 rooms with 50 people in it to get 2,500 people. And so, that is how that works. RP1 has a shardless system that they want to bring in a lot more people to. And so that is really fundamental to one of the problems that we need to solve, is when these devices come out, how many people can we put into a particular experience and still have it be a high quality experience for people. Because as far as I'm concerned, having 1 million people on Fortnite doesn't really count because it's in 2D.
Interesting. Thank you for that. And also the other question is it about quantity or quality? Like how many people can we engage with in these experiences, even if it was a real life, right? If the purpose is to just be present and feel the presence of more people, yes, maybe the avatar doesn't matter. The details may not matter. The quality of experience doesn't matter. But if it is about connection and building that human relationship, I think less people, higher quality might make sense. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I agree with the principle that less is more, but I also agree that quality is paramount. And so, sure, there is something to be said about, wow, there's a lot of people here. There's also something to be said for, one of the most impressive experiences I've seen lately is the Metallica on Apple Vision Pro immersive video experience. It's just stunning. They must have covered it from 40 cameras, and whether you're looking at a shot of the audience or you're right up on the guitar player, you can see the strings and the neck and all the little details that you couldn't get if you paid and sat anywhere but right in front of the performers. And so these, you have a stadium full of 50,000 people. So the presence isn't necessarily contained in the fact that you're dealing with live avatars. The presence is the whole immersion in something. And if you're in a stadium full of people and you feel like you're there and the people are in 3D, then that is worth something. Like that's one sort of fake way to scale that. But ultimately, that shared experience where you're there with somebody in a moment, that's what we're aspiring to. That's what we want to have happen at scale. It's going to take a long time. The network latency has to be able to keep up with this. And we're building these enormous AI data centers around the world right now. And this is why NVIDIA was the first $4 trillion company. I think that this is also going to help facilitate that scalability.
Awesome. I mean, their stock is going down now, but nobody knows what happens next. Anyways, let's talk about one of the comments we got. That was about, I think Allison brought in enterprise versus mass adoption when we are building content or hardware. Do you have any specific thoughts on what should people focus on? Should they focus on both or one over the other for now?
Well, I'll put it this way. My focus is on consumer mass adoption, not enterprise mass adoption. I think that enterprise is on its own track. It's leading the way because enterprise can afford to invest and experiment more. But enterprise is also very cautious, and enterprise is also very fickle when it comes to the results meeting their expectations. So you have these big international consulting firms that are hired by the big multinational corporations to handle their digital transformation and to see whatever whatever's hot in the hype. Right now it's AI. AI is going to be around the same way XR is going to be around. I think that AI is headed for a reckoning, just like everything else was. But ultimately, these are all going to meld in blockchain, XR, and AI together, and even the Internet of Things. Like those four technologies are siblings to each other, and they are one family of technologies that is going to grow. So, with all due respect for enterprise, honestly, I don't care. And when it comes to the consumer, I'm a consumer, and I want to be able to share experiences with my friends with as little friction as possible. I want to be able to experience things with my friends remotely with as little friction as possible, with as little cost as possible. And I want the human race to be able to have access to this technology the same way that mobile phones are in billions of pockets right now. I think that this, from a human standpoint, is really essential for, if you look at how technology, starting with the printing press distributing words, to cameras taking pictures, to motion pictures, to audio, to film with sound, to 3D, to the internet, and now volumetric content. Like, this evolution is just going forward, but we're 3D beings in 3D space, and we want to experience things in 3D. And we are also creatures that want to share with each other. Many of us are anyway. And so when we go into these experiences, we're creating memories. And that is really what is the difference between a 2D experience and a 3D experience. When we're embodied as avatars and we go into a virtual world with our friends and we do something together, we're burning a memory into our imaginations the same way we are as when we're doing something in the real world. No one's ever said that this is going to replace the real world, but what it does do is it makes possible interactions that wouldn't otherwise be possible without great expense, and things that aren't even possible in the first place.
Yes, totally. I mean, the more senses we interact and engage with these experiences, the more memorable it becomes. So, very good point. Let's talk about your proposed solution around public media model and this PBS or BBC of immersive. How do you think that is going to solve for this?
Well, I'll get to how I think my solution will solve for it, but let me sort of lay out the problem statement first here. First of all, the industry as we know it, immersive content as we know it, is something like 90% games. And a good percentage of those games are first-person shooters. And I don't have any judgment for people who enjoy first-person shooter games, but I think that there is a disproportional amount and a sad lack of imagination when it comes to, oh, what am I going to create? Oh, let me create a shooter game. Well, we have enough shooter games. What we need are Sesame Street and the NewsHour and things like PBS. Like, an entire generation grew up with public broadcasting, and it nurtured the American intellect and the American spirit and gave healthy content to children that we're starting to see fade away. And I don't want to get into the political dimensions of this, but what has happened this year in terms of the defunding of public institutions, such as, or, telling the Smithsonian what to do, defunding publication, higher public education, like Ivy League colleges being defunded. But what was one of the most egregious things that happened was that on August 1st, Congress defunded the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which is the conduit between the public funding for public media, which includes PBS and NPR in the United States, and in doing so, it didn't kill PBS or NPR, but it basically took away their funnel of cash. And the net effect of that is that this money was distributed across markets so that nationally people were able to receive public media in smaller markets. Now, I live in New York. NPR's New York is probably a bit healthier and better funded, like, or in the northeastern megalopolis between DC and Boston is a very heavily populated area, and there are many local affiliates within that. And those, because there are so many people, will be fine. But if you go out into the populated parts of the country that have underrepresentation that are getting nothing but local news there, the type of content that you're getting from public media is going to vanish. And that is really, I think, detrimental. So that is sort of the problem that we have right now. I try to think of what the possibilities are with immersive as being an opportunity, sort of a phoenix to rise from the ashes, if you will, of the legacy media or of TV and radio. And certainly NPR and PBS and other public media venues migrated onto the web like everything else does. And so they're going to migrate into the metaverse like everything else does. And this will be very important. But I think that the funding of public media for immersive content needs to start now. And so when Terry and Karen and I founded the Academy of Immersive Arts and Sciences, it is with a vision to create an ecosystem of public media for immersive content that has nutritious, nourishing content that is good for kids, it's good for adults, will help the collective intellect, but we also don't want to just limit it to the United States. Is that the one key difference between PBS and what we have in mind is that there's a whole planet of people that need nourishing content, and that's what we would like to see served.
Beautiful. And the Polly's giving award to those who are doing good work is part of this mission as well.
Certainly. The ethos of the Academy of Immersive Arts and Sciences is educate, inspire, and recognize. And the pillar of recognition is something that the Polly's has always been about. And personally, I think that I never felt professional gratification the way that I have in seeing how recognizing an individual receiving an award or being recognized for their work, which otherwise may have gone unnoticed, how it's good for them has made it good for me. And I have personally been very motivated by the net effect that has had on many people. And, earlier you called me as a connector. I guess I don't really think of myself as that, but when it comes to connecting, I think that what I've witnessed is a lot of people that I've knowing each other outside of my connection, like I haven't directly put these people in touch, but the influence that myself and the team behind the Polys and Metatraversal and the WebXR Summit series, the net effect of that over years through recognizing people has connected them, and they've done things together, which has then in turn impacted the ecosystem. And that has also been very rewarding.
Beautiful. Amazing, great work that you all are doing. And we had a few comments as you were describing the situation with PBS. Allison mentioned the stations are closing, which is really sad. And Ivo mentioned that there is, I believe, a blog or article about this as well. But yeah, it's really sad these things are happening, but as you said, there might be some positive into creating something new and even better and bigger. And we had a whole conversation going in the chat about that enterprise versus masses, which we can get into a little bit after we cover some other topics. But thank you all for engaging. So many great comments and insights. Let's talk about this other problem, which is the reputation. We briefly touched on the metaverse hype and even the gaming kind of confusion between, and has been brought in the comments, sometimes people think of this immersive XR as this type of immersive gaming. What are your thoughts about this reputation challenge? especially what we went through with Metaverse hype, crypto scams, all of that. And what are some of the ideas and solutions to not have to experience this again?
Well, I mean, we're sort of dealing with human nature here. So I don't necessarily think that any of the hype cycle itself is from the innovation trigger to the peak of inflated expectations, to the trough of disillusionment, to the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity. It's a cycle because it's endless. So I don't have any illusions that the hype itself is going to go away. But I think that the same way that we need to have critical thinking tools when it comes to information, we need to look critically at what's going on in the ecosystem and not have inflated expectations. And to be realistic, it takes a long time for technology to roll out. Just because it's hot today doesn't necessarily mean that it's mature. And a perfect example is generative AI. And generative AI is awesome, and it deserves all of its hype because it's so. But and AI itself, whether you're just doing text prompts, whether you're doing Chat GPT as a tool, or whether you're creating images or videos with it, it has the same sort of like what I call an 80-20 proportion of excellent to crap, and the crap really spoils it. Like you can work for 10 minutes on something and get 80% of the way there and then blow the rest of your day out with completely useless end game to it. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the things that makes it hype, is that until this matures, that we can say, hey, you got that wrong, could you fix it, and not have it give you back the same broken information or image that shows you the same thing. This is just an example of many things that happen. Crypto speculation and bull runs and bear markets and stuff like that has really, I feel, soured people on the term metaverse. A couple of years ago, the whole NFT hype cycle, the crash of that. I mean, first of all, it's like ridiculous to pay $300,000 for a JPEG. So haha on you if you fell for that. But the people that got hurt by doing retail investing and getting caught in rug pulls, I'm not laughing at those people, because those people made a mistake and there's hardship, and there's really something that is wrong with speculative scams that go along with it. And when the Metaverse XR hype cycle was peaking out, crypto was like, hey, look, we're having a bull run. Look at us. We're the Metaverse too. And XR was like, yeah, sure, you're the Metaverse. Great. This is Big Tent. Well, everybody come on in. And then that blew up and it took the Metaverse down with it. And so I bear a little bit of resentment to the conflation of crypto with the Metaverse. Blockchain as a technology has a very important role to play in attribution and authenticity. It's digital authenticity is something that we didn't have before, and it still isn't quite there. But as long as it's tied to a speculative token that can rise or fall on a whim or a pump and dump by a whale, then we're not dealing with legitimate economics here. And so, yes, we need immutable saved data that, it's immutable as long as it's correct, because, the whole principle of garbage in, garbage out with data applies to blockchain. So we could store wrong information in a blockchain and say it's true, but it doesn't make it any more true. But, for things like school credits, like somebody gets a degree, I have a diploma that I can't find. If that were on a blockchain, I could say, here's the hash, do that. That type of authentication and attribution is essential, but it needs to be completely decoupled from the rise and fall of falsely valued coins that aren't even really coins. They're, numbers in a ledger.
Thank you. Very comprehensive perspective. Yeah, I agree. It's always going to be bad actors. There are always going to be people that just want to take advantage of the hype, but we have to see through that and hopefully use it for good. I have a question here from Shadi, and the PBS idea is inspiring. As a creator, what's the first step I can take to get my educational or artistic projects seen by the Academy? Are you actively funding or distributing content right now? Can you share a little bit more about how you're supporting creators or how they can get involved?
Well, so first things first, we're at the very beginning. And so we are not actively funding this. We have the Academy began with the programs that we have been working on for the last couple of years, but it wasn't created as a vehicle to just serve those event programs. But we are looking for the next Jim Henson and the next Jim Lair and the next Masterpiece Theater. All of these programs that are either produced and or licensed and distributed through public media. That genre is what I think we really need. So I'm not judging other things. I'm just saying we need this, and this does not exist. We do not have public media. So as far as if you want to get seen by the Academy, connect with me on LinkedIn and reach out to me. And I'll be very happy to take a look. I don't want to set any expectations that what we're building is going to be ready for public consumption any sooner than the devices that are going to hit the market are. But what we're trying to do through our programs that we have now, particularly Metatraversal, as well as by recognizing people through the polys and other events that we come along with, is we're trying to nurture the industry itself to make good choices so that it serves a broader constituency of global consumers, not just national consumers, so that people have access to really high quality public media that they can learn something from, that they can experience things with other people, and that they can share with joy. We want to bring joy and high quality. We want immersive public media to influence humanity in a positive way, because we've got a lot of problems to solve. And I can't sit around and despair over politics, but I can channel my energy positively into this endeavor, which I hope will, on the back end, make a difference.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Now let's imagine we solve these challenges we talked about. We uncork this bottleneck and build this open, interoperable distribution network. What does the world look like in 5 to 10 years?
10 years. Well, okay. Well, in 2020, Jensen Huang famously said, or at least to me famously, because I latched onto it when he said it live. This was September 3rd, 2020, on the release of the 3000 series NVIDIA cards, which now they're up to the 5000 series. He said, in 20 years, homes will have holodecks. So we're now down to a 15-year timeline on that. And he didn't say what a holodeck would be, but this vision speaks to me in several ways. Number one is that people need to start thinking about building in 3D now. One of my mantras over the last couple of years has been people who, there are something like 13,000 or 13 million JavaScript developers out there. And that also doesn't account for C# developers, C++ developers, people who are building in 3D. The number of people building in 3D are a fraction of people that are building in 2D. To achieve the metaverse, to achieve holodecks, we need legions of people building in 3D. So I think that that's one of the most important things. There will be no public media for immersive. There will be none of this. And I think Ori Inbar really nailed it with putting emphasis on the XR master builder. We need people to create in 3D. So that's number one. Number two is that we're seeing very early versions of devices that will eventually grow into holodecks. And I'll specifically point to Looking Glass has hololuminescent displays, and they've flattened the device that allows you multi-user experience to see parallax 3D, which will allow us to have real home 3D TVs at some point, and we will need to publish content onto flat surfaces that have a 3D look that are not managed by eye tracking, because eye tracking is a single user experience because it can only lock onto one eye at once, and it generates the video for one person at a time. But Looking Glass has beaten that, and that's the beginning of something. Now, also, I'll look at Voxon in Australia. Gavin Smith has been working on volumetric displays for years, and now they're in color. Now they're slightly larger, but they're also very low resolution, and the number of voxels that it takes to represent an image is still comparatively low to what it's going to be. But when we have freestanding that are not sort of contained in a vacuum projectors, that, volumetric projectors, that is a whole nother area of science that needs to be beaten, that I think that we eventually will get there. But when we get to 2040, and that's 5 years longer than you asked me to do it, but just to go with Jensen Huang's benchmark of 2040, AI is going to help us build these 3D experiences. AI will help us build the hardware and solve these problems that we have. And at AWE this year, in my talk, I had a logarithmic curve. That's a slide that if I was going to do a slide here, it would be that one, is because there's a logarithmic curve of innovation, and we're right now in that moment where it goes boop up to 2050. Like if we take the 200 years from when we invented the photograph to 2050, what AI is going to do for us is it's going to accelerate coding. It's going to accelerate invention itself, because engineers will use this as a tool to solve their problems faster. And so when it comes to all of the limitations that physics as we know it today are facing, that will get solved that much faster. So the innovation curve is going to be blinding over the next 15 years.
Thank you so much for this. Another great comprehensive answer. And we heard recently that CTO of Meta is leaving or has already left Meta to go build the world models of AI.
I'm sorry, who?
The CTO of Meta, or Chief Science Officer of Meta. Yeah.
Right.
And so, this is definitely happening. The godmother of AI, she also started, a company that is focused on 3D generation with AI. So yes, definitely this is happening, maybe even sooner than 2040. This will become mainstream even sooner than that. And then you brought up having these metaverse builders. What do you think about the fact that a lot of those folks are game designers now, because that's where maybe they can make some money? So maybe there needs to be some more support for people to do this transition, not necessarily going for those first-person shooters that we talked about, but finding opportunities in XR.
I would say gamification is a net positive, because when you make something fun and enjoyable and turn it into a learning experience, then it adds value to it, because you're solving puzzles that have meaning. And that is a very valuable thing. I have nothing against games, but I think that when you were asking about reputation, is that one of the sort of false reputations that XR has is that it's all about gaming, and gamifying things is different. That's more of a construct of how we learn. That is a pragmatic approach to intellectual development.
Awesome. We're approaching towards the end of the show, but this was such an insightful episode. Thank you so much, Ben. This was amazing. Tell us where people can find you beyond LinkedIn. We talked about different organizations. Hopefully you can share some links afterwards. As Karen mentioned and Hasib mentioned, the Poly Awards is open for submissions.
Yes,
what else can people do to support you?
So let's start with that. The polys.com/nominate is where you can put in, you can enter your projects for the 6 Poly Awards, which will take place on March 22nd. We also have a whole separate form for Splat of the Year, and that's the polys.com/sploty, all lowercase. And so if you want to put in, Splat of the Year is our award that is the only thing that we open for public semifinals. And so we partner with Arrival Space, who hosts your Gaussian splats, and you can go in and enjoy them in VR. And we have the public sort of upvote the splats that then we distill that down to 5 or 6 finalists for the polys, which the regular polys judging pool does that. And if you'd like to judge the polys, you can also reach out to me. But just real quick plugs on what we have coming up. We just finished a week of events. So we did the Immersive X event last week, where we announced publicly for the first time that Sophia and Julie are stepping back as hosts. They're still on the Polys team, but Ashley Coffey is the new red carpet host, and Renard T. Jenkins is the new ceremony host, and they will debut at Mission Responsible on December 14th. And Mission Responsible 3 is our third event, where we're going to bring together all 6 Polys ombudspersons. Ombudspersons are our ethics guardians, a special award, a special honor that we give out for people who really keep ethics in the public conversation. And Nani de la Pena has been chosen, and part of our tradition is that each honoree chooses the next. And so our previous honoree, Ingrid Kopp from Electric South, chose Nani, and so we're very excited to hear from her at Mission Responsible. That's December 14th at noon Eastern, and that will be in Engage. You're welcome to come and engage. Kent Bai also takes that conversation and publishes it on his podcast after the fact. And then we have Metatraversal Portal Crawl 7 on New Year's Eve with Evo and Julie, who are the co-hosts of Metatraversal. And we are going to do it a little bit different. We did 6 portal crawls, and we did a town hall to talk about what we learned. So this next portal crawl, we're going to try to switch it up a little bit more and lean a little bit more into the arts, and maybe even visit some walled gardens in the process. And so after I will be at United XR. If any of you are going to United XR in Brussels, I will be on a panel called The Invisible Architects. And I will be there with Damon Hernandez of XR Guild, with Maria Rice of Reality Hack, with Nico Rosa of Virtual World Society, and Christine Ilhabi of XR Women. And so that will be a lot of fun, and the Academy is exhibiting there. So if you are on the fence about whether you want to go to Brussels or not, the code POLY20 will save you 20% on a ticket to it. And because not a lot of people fly to Brussels in December, the flight demand is pretty low. You can probably do pretty well with a ticket depending on where you live. So so those are some of the key plugs. I'll also be speaking at AWE Long Beach in June, and try to hit Immersive Tech Week while I'm in Europe. And so, that's the foreseeable future here.
You're so busy and doing so much good work with amazing people, like some of those that we had in the chat. Thank you so much, Ben. Yeah, this was amazing.
You're very welcome. Yeah. And I do want to give a shout out to some of those amazing people, because
I was going to do the same. Yeah, go ahead.
None of these things that I've been doing happened entirely by myself. I start with Julie and Terry, that we started XR Collaboration with, and Karen and Sophia, who got together with Julie and formed XR Women. Like, all of these people are very close. and we have been on this amazing adventure, but it's been a very personal, fulfilling journey for all of us. And so there are so many people that I want to thank that I don't have time for, but I also want to thank Hasib Musa, who stepped up as the managing director of Ready Player Golf. And we raised our fundraising bar this year, raised over $10,000 for James Orgo's program that brings VR to children dying of terminal cancer. And he did a phenomenal job with that. And again, I could go down a very long list of people, but I love you all. Thank you for being part of this journey.
You're amazing, and all the people you work with. Thanks to our amazing engaged audience, Evo, Kathy. So grateful for all the insightful comments we didn't get to talk about, but we'll definitely respond afterwards. Julie.
Have you had Evo on your show yet?
Oh, she will be in December.
Good. Evo's a genius. You got to talk to Evo.
It's awesome.
She brings it every time.
Amazing. Thanks, Thomas, Helen, Karen, of course. And we had so many other amazing folks like Hasdeb, you mentioned, Shadi and Daniel and Chris and everyone else. We're so grateful for all of your time and energy and love for this immersive experiences space. Thank you so much again, Ben.
And if that's Chris Madsen, Chris Madsen's another guy who deserves a shout out, the Wizard of Engage.
Amazing, beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day. We'll be back next week with another great episode. Have a lovely rest of your day. Bye.
Namaste, all of you.